go ahead and call this meeting. If you guys can please be quiet. Thank you. All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. 5:30 legislative meeting on Monday, December the 12th. Commissioner Teacher, would you mind praying?
Heavenly Father, Lord, we love you and we come to you. I pray that you'll please just know that I humble myself before you, Lord. I pray that you'll please just do the best thing, Lord, for Sumner County, for the people, everybody sitting in this room. And Lord, I just pray that you'll please just guide our actions and, Lord, guide our hearts, Lord, toward one another, in kindness and love. Lord, I praise you. Thank you for everybody that I'm on the commission with, Lord, and I thank you for everybody we get the privilege of representing and serving. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. All right, to approval of the agenda. Before we approve the agenda, I want to move old business to behind new business. Two reasons. One, the discussion for the code resolution. Marshall Wright contacted me, said that he's not ready. We can wait a couple months on that, so we're going to keep that on old business. But for the Cottontail property, it's our third month in committee, so I want to put that behind to make sure we get some things that have to get done tonight, gets done tonight. So is there any objection to that, moving that towards the end as far as an agenda item? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Schoaf. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Recognition of the public. We have 5 citizens signed up to speak, 4 for Cottontown and 1 for rezoning. That's for docketing purposes. When I call your name up, if you would please just come up here to the table, and we're going to have 5 minutes. I am going to have you on a timer, and when the timer goes off, I will ask you to please refrain from speaking. So first up, we have Mrs. Charlotte Gribbins. If you wouldn't mind, is Ms. Gribbins in the room?
I'm here.
Okay. If you don't mind just stating your name and address for the record.
Yes. My name is Charlotte Gribbins. I live at 2339 Highway 25, Cottontown, Tennessee. We own the property there in Cottontown. We raise the longhorn cattle and bale hay and do everything to do with the country. So, of course, you know I'm against what's being planned. I knew the Brickies personally. We've been through this, where I think it needs to stay with them. There's some other issues I have where we hear talk about the county can't afford it anymore. I know she knows how much money is in there that's left from Mr. Bricky's auction of his stuff to maintain. I don't understand, if the county needs that money that bad, that we have to give property away and fail on money that we're owed if we don't complete a project. So you're basically saying we're broke, but we can lose $300,000 and give away, what, $500,000 worth of property? Because I know how much 2 pieces cost. One was 105, one was 21. The other 2, I'm not sure, but they gotta be in the same range. So why not finish what you're supposed to do? And if you think you need the money, sell it. Sell it. Don't give it away. Don't give it away. And if you would take the bridal house out, I would be willing to have any kind of events at my place to make sure that they have the money to pay their own way. You don't have to give Mr. Brick and Francis home away. And then can you do this to every historical home? If somebody come up and wanted it, can you just give it to them? Can you go in and try to figure out a way to wiggle out of the wheel and give it to somebody? Because you have the Douglas house. How many others do you have? Could they be given away like that? Nobody knows.
It's not a question and answer time.
Oh, well, sorry. I need to know. The only other problem I have is when you look at this, okay, and it says Museum Homeschool. They have a homeschool. It's called Eagle Academy. And then you look at all this other, and it looks like a Leaper's Fork, and was said Leaper's Fork. I know you heard it too, because we were at the same meeting. We do not want Leaper's Fork there. I was just there this weekend. You do not want that. And it can be separate issues. We do not have to tie the greenway up into this. That's a whole separate issue. You want me to help you fight the greenway? Take it out of that. I'll be more than happy to fight it. I'm not one of them people that bought my place to develop it. I'm just not. So make it a separate issue. And like I said, I'll help fight that. Just don't tie it together, because it's not even relevant. It has no business being the same thing. All right, I said it in less than 5 minutes, so.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Scrivens. All right, next up is Mrs. Jane Wright. If you'd come up here and state your name and address for the record, please, that'd be great.
Jane Wright, 1007 Lakewood Drive in Gallatin. And I'm president of the Friends of the Bridal House. I've sent a letter to all the commissioners, and I'm just going to read you a few excerpts from it just for time's sake. As Ms. Charlotte Griffin said, in 2016, Don Rickey did gift the county his home on and it is on the National Historic Register, and he left it to the county. And the county accepted the property, and it became a county building, and therefore the county accepted the responsibility of maintaining the building, as it does for all of our county buildings. Upon its I was asked, after they received the property, if I would head up an organization to manage the house, and which I have done. I've called, set up a lot of our board members are members of other historical boards. I myself am on the board of the Bledsoe Lick Historical Association in Cascadian Springs, and up till 2 years ago, we managed not only the Bledsoe Ford Historical Park, but also Wynwood and Hawthorne Hill. So there's 5 on our board, I think, that are on that board also. So we have experience in managing historic sites, and that's why I was asked to do that. And like I said, a lot of our other, we have 9 on our board members, and I think we have 43 members right now, Friends of the Bridal House. Mr. Brickey's home furnishings, as Ms. Scrivens said, were auctioned, and the money has been used for all the initial, there was a lot of work to be done on it to start with. Heat and air was put in. It was, we built the kitchenette on the back, and just the cleanup was a big part of it. But there are just some things that have been said about the Bridal House that we'd just like to clear up, and about our participation in some of this. So, but prior to the County Commission's Legislative Committee meeting on November 9th, I had not been contacted by anyone on the County Commission or by the Bristers and their organization about this at all. Only the past week did I speak to the commissioners, and I initiated most of the calls. I think I called all of you and invited you out to our Christmas open house, because I knew a lot of you had never visited the Bridal House, so I wanted you to have a chance to look at that. On this meeting that was called, the ad hoc committee, no one from our board. No, I wasn't contacted. There was a member that is on our board that was on the committee. I wasn't even told she was on it until we were there. And also, we couldn't understand how Erica Brister was to chair the ad hoc committee when she was the one that was, her organization was to receive the property, which, I don't know, seems like a conflict of interest to me. Also, we've been hearing on Facebook that alleges that the Friends of the Bridal House is part of a conspiracy to develop the Bridal House property and use the property as a bookend to the now defunct Greenway project that was defeated by the former county commission in 2019. Now, I've been told that that's not true, and then I've been told that it is. It's another thing, just like the FEMA money. You know, one person says one thing, one says another. We're not clear on that at all. Also, in conversations on Facebook, Celeste Bridal House is involved in a conspiracy with the former county mayor, Anthony Hope, to tear down the community center and develop it. The Bridal House can develop nothing. We do not own the property. All we do is manage it. Had nothing to do with the community center. But we have done exactly what Mr. Bricky asked in his will. We have made it into a county museum. And we do a lot of, we've done exactly what he wanted. We furnished the house, no cost to the county. And if y'all visited, you've seen that we have wonderful furniture, probably about $80,000 worth of furniture, of antiques in that house. The Bridal House, I cannot see as a drain on county finances.
So time's up, so thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Next up, Rebecca Goddard. If you would step up to the table and please state your name and your address for the record.
I'm Rebecca Goddard, and I'm at 2339 New Hope Road, Hendersonville, 37075. And I have been a resident of Sumner County for 11 months, and that seems to really bother some people that I even have a voice here. I was told by a former commissioner to pack my stuff and leave town because I don't have anything to offer here. But being that I'm from California and we have developed every single blade of grass in the state to the point of destroying the entire thing, greenways, historical properties, everything has been destroyed. This county, and had I done my due diligence, knowing that the prior commission put this county over $300 million in debt. So most of the decisions that they made, taking properties, giving properties, developing, condemning, seem to have been horrible choices. Because if they were good choices, the county and the taxpayers wouldn't be holding the water for egotistical, maniacal projects. And when you look at Cottontown, which I'm looking for property there, I've been looking for property there, just the right property. Cottontown is I guess you would say it's the belt buckle of the belt between Gallatin, Portland, White House, and Nashville. Well, I don't know if y'all get to Nashville, but it's an S-hole. I mean, it really is. Do you want to be that? Do you want to be Davidson County that can't control their homeless, that can't control their spending, they're putting their taxpayers in debt for ridiculous projects? I don't necessarily know. I don't want to see Cottontown develop the way that the plan was. I absolutely don't want to see it. I'm against it with every fiber of my being, and I will sit here and say why I am against it all the time. I don't want this. I do not want Tennessee to become California, and I'm trying to help you all see that, and I don't think that you do. I don't think that you see what is happening here. It's a slow, insidious drip of bad decisions that turn places into what happened to California. And if you continue to allow it, there's no stopping it. This is the place that you can stop it. And I think that you all can work together. The people that want the Bridal House to stay with the county and the people that want it to go with the Bristers. There is a common ground that we can come to that will save Cottontown. Because it's not that far apart. I've listened to both sides of the story. It's not that far apart. Y'all just don't like each other. And you need to grow up and stop being children about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Goddard. Next up is Mr. Wayne Paget. Mr. Paget, if you don't mind stating your full name and address, that'd be fantastic. Would you like a chair?
No, you're fine. I just need one to lean on.
Okay.
Can I get one of those down there and lean on it?
Yes.
Let me right there.
You can sit right here. You're fine. Just stay right here.
Wayne Paget, 279 Bursby Branch Road, 51-year resident of Cottontown, I raised my family there. I've got a son back there that's been there 50 years. I've got every aspect of this whole thing from beginning to end here in these folders. If anybody wants to get together, I've invited Jamie, the Bristers, every commissioner. Some of them we've talked, some of them we haven't. Mr. Kleiner, I've talked to him. This is totally $1 million, 4 parcels of property that we're talking about in Cottontail. And I hate to be redundant, but I've told y'all this before. It don't belong to us. It belongs to everybody in Sumner County. And just like Charlotte said a while ago, you don't have the right of few people to take it away from them. Now, I've mentioned this to Merrill, I've mentioned it several more. The way you get rid of excess property, surplus property, is y'all pass a rule and you set it. And you divide the money up against the taxpayers in the general budget. Now, there's been a lot of controversy over what happened out there the other day at the meeting. I heard the county attorney relayed that it was illegal.
No,
It wasn't?
No.
Okay, I wanted to clear that up. I hate that happened. I really do, for your sake. But when you have a meeting, an ad hoc committee, and you got the chairman, just like it was mentioned a while ago, of that committee that's property is gonna be turned over to her and her husband. $1 million worth of property that they can go the next day and borrow money against it. They can create a 501c. They can pay themselves a salary. They can take grants from whoever's offering a grant. And it's a never-ending thing, the corruption that could be developed right there. Now, this document right here is a resolution that y'all passed. You remember that, Ben? Resolution 221105, November 14th, 2022. Ethics resolution. Everybody on board with it? You remember it? You don't remember it?
Never seen it.
We just passed it last month.
Oh, last month, okay,
I said November the 14th.
okay.
That everything in there, no, not everything, but at least 2 things have been violated. We've got a commissioner sitting at this table, and I'm not gonna call names, that needs to recluse himself from all proceedings because he has took money from the Bristers twice this year. You did it, I didn't do it.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, I don't mind you saying it, it's public record.
No interaction.
Sorry, sir.
Pardon me?
No interaction. Just keep,
Okay.
continue.
I don't care, it's up to you.
No, I'm not gonna allow it, so I don't remember what you said. You keep going.
I assume this was to be a document that y'all operated by. There's no way that you can form an ad hoc committee that this man appointed and make the chairman of it somebody that's gonna inherit the property. Now, anybody and any judge, anybody in this room knows there's a conflict there. It's just like that lady said a while ago. We're not against helping y'all out with the 2035 plan, because I'm totally against it, 100%. But I know what was supposed to have been done with the community center. I went down there, y'all heard his name mentioned the other day, Kirby Parker. When he was down on ground trying to patch the floor where people wouldn't fall through it. Now, it's been told in here by several people that it was able to fix it. Yeah, at what kind of price? $1 million, minimum. Y'all voted not to spend money on that old barn down the highway down here, which, thank you. I appreciate that 100%. That's the best move you ever made. I was totally against building that. And I was against rehabbing the old community center of Cottontown because of the expense to the taxpayers. Now, all we ask in return, when I signed a deed, and some more residents in Cottontown signed a deed when we gave it to the county, according to the legal agreement with the Board of Education. And all we asked in return for it was a pavilion like Ocana has got. Now, that pavilion would cost about $25,000.
Time's up, Mr. Pack. Thank you very much.
That worked out just right.
It did. Next up is Austin T. Kirby about the rezoning docketing for, state your name and address for the record.
Austin Kirby, I'm the attorney for the applicants on the 456 rezone plan. I understand we're just here for docketing purposes tonight. I just want to kind of speak to some of the commissioners about, and the community, for anyone who's interested, about what we're actually trying to do. My clients own the surrounding piece of property around 456 Thompson Lane. It's a farm. It's been a farm for generations, but my clients bought it from one of the inheritors of an estate. They have on that property several buildings, one of which is a warehouse, concrete floored, very large, about 10,000 square feet. And basically what they want to do in it is go from welding hay rings and repairing tractor repair to using it for their fabrication business. What that involves is welding together steel handrails, stairs, all internally, all blocked from view from the public. There's been several concerns raised by members of the public about what this would actually do, and I just want to kind of clarify that for the record and for the commission. Basically, there's on average about one truck delivery a day, and on 456 Thompson Lane or out that way, there's about a dozen trucks that come through for feed or anything else. And before it was this property, it was a dairy farm that had 2 trucks, 40 foot long, twice a day anyway. It's of negligible impact to the county, and as other people here have stressed, apparently the county's in some financial troubles, and this would be a revenue, tax-paying business in there. It's only about a mile from other light industrial buildings out in the New Deal area, and because my clients own the surrounding land anyway, there's of no harm or danger to anyone else from them doing this activity. It's actually, for agricultural purposes, they could sit in there and weld hay rings all day long for their own farm, and then nothing would change at all from the equipment they use to any portion of that. They just want to change it from that agricultural purposes. For the farm that they run, they raise cattle, pigs, I don't want to say sheep, I don't think that's right, but in that vein. And they just want to change that to doing the same exact activity, just for a different economic purpose. My clients are here with several members of the community, but for convenience sake, I'm the only one speaking to on their behalf tonight. But that's pretty much it. We'll be presenting to the County Commission on January 23rd for the up or down nod on that, and we would appreciate if we could get that through. As far as its impact and benefit to the community, it's better to have tax-paying businesses than it is to have another 100-acre of homes or something else turned into. And no one, my clients like this land. They like farming it. They like living out there. They like maintaining that way of life. And what they want to do doesn't change that. And if this economic purpose doesn't work, then for financial reasons, they'd have to pursue their own economic benefit, and no one wants to see another 100-acre development go up in Sumner County. And that's just a financial reality of just the times that we live in. Land's at a premium, and they'd rather keep it to one building on a 5-acre PUD that's internal and doesn't impact anyone else, as opposed to any other unfortunate measures. That's pretty much my time. I know it's rare to have an attorney use less than their full amount of time, but that's it. I appreciate y'all's time this evening.
Thank you very much. All right, that is it for public comments. Close that, recognize the public. So, for the chairman, only thing I want to maybe suggest that we think about in January, if you guys were up to it, I don't know if you'd want to permanently move this meeting time to 5:30, give us from 5:30 to 7, since it seems that we quite have things that are lengthy in nature. So just something to think about for next month. So you won't have to take any action on that. So that's all. Report of the county mayor? No report. All right. Like I said, old business, we moved it to the end of the agenda. New business, veteran service report attached. If there's any action with that, right, Ben?
No.
And reappoint magistrates. Do we need to take a vote on that? Is that
No, you actually
okay.
got to vote on that.
So I'm going to, I move to approve the reappointment of magistrates. Give me a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have no problem with that, but over the years, from the beginning of the magistrates, I've seen it gradually grow. And I'm wondering if Ben can tell us, what the reason is for the growth of the magistrates, the number.
I don't have specific information about when extra magistrates were added. I would assume it has to do with the size of the county and the number of people that are unfortunately arrested for various reasons and due to crime in this county, and just those numbers. But I don't know who had what conversations as far as when extras were needed and when those took place.
How many do we have now?
There's 9 on the sheet, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds correct, with
Okay.
9 of them, but
It looks like that, Mr. Draper, I think he's the director, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that 10 with him?
No, it's 9, including him.
And if we have 9, I'm thinking, if I remember correctly, which that certainly could be wrong, we started with 4.
sir, I would not know that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does anything break if we put this off a month? I mean,
We are required to approve them every year because they are, vested with quite a bit of power.
No, I get it.
It's
Do
not
we
so-
have to now,
Yeah,
though?
that's the question.
I believe we have to now. We do it the same month every year. I haven't looked into what happens if we delay it a month, and I believe it's something we have to do now.
Okay, my next question is, how many counties around us are using magistrates like this instead of other people to issue warrants?
So I believe that David did a little looking at how other counties do it, just for price comparisons, and they use judicial commissioners the same. In some counties, cities, different cities pay for some of the commissioners, where here we pay for them all, but they're all judicial commissioners or magistrates. The term in the statutes now is judicial commissioners, but magistrates is the older term that we still use interchangeably.
You may, if you appoint them, when you do the budget this year, there's still no, if that's what your question, if you're appointing 9 magistrates and you come into a budget and you determine there's too many magistrates and you only find 8, then there's still only 8 magistrates ultimately funding. There's just an appointed, unfunded magistrate. Is that the question? Is that correct?
My
Dan?
question was, how many other counties around us, Robertson, how does Robertson handle issuing warrants? I distinctly remember that when this program was adopted by the county, it was almost like the sky is going to fall if we don't appoint judicial magistrates. That this is the only way to do it. And then I have been enlightened to the fact that most counties don't use such a system as hired judicial magistrates, which we have putting people on payroll and benefits and everything else, I'm assuming. I would like to make a motion that we get more information on this, and I may even be for it. I want the most efficient way possible, but in my opinion, we ought to wait, get more information, and if this legally is found to be a case where we have to do it this month, then we have time. We have a week before, and we can meet before the county commission and take action.
Can I point out that if you vote in this committee to approve, it is just to put it on the commission. I can look up these answers in this following week, and that way if it has to be done and there's no ability to delay without us running into legal issues, it's already on the agenda, and if not, we can always at the commission meeting either deny it or defer it.
I appreciate what you're saying, Ben, but being here 30 years, I know how that goes a lot of times. If you say, well, let's just go ahead and put it on the agenda, on the commission agenda, and then it gets railroaded through. My motion would be to hold this until, and it may not be the will of this committee, and that's fine. But I would want to hold it until we can find out more information, and then ask that it be added to the agenda if it's an emergency situation.
All right, so we have an amendment to my main motion to approve on the floor to basically defer to next month. Is that, would you say that we, or?
No, I'm okay with this month if we can find answers during the week and we can just add it to the agenda, but I don't want to add it to the agenda now. I want information
We would have
sent
to do
to
a
us
special
this
call
week.
meeting.
Well, or
next
send
Monday.
us information in regard to it, or we could have a special call meeting.
Or amend it on the floor to add it if it's determined needed at the meeting.
Okay,
Whichever.
all right, so, I guess we don't have to take action, we can just, we can make the motion to, postpone definitely until next week, until we know.
So there's an motion on the table, I think, right, I'll withdraw my second. So
There's an amendment, my motion was approved, an amendment to, basically to amend that, to hold it, which basically I would say postpone definitely until next week, give it a time, to the full commission, I guess. I mean, technically, that's what I think what we're doing. So, we're not meeting next week, but it's just we're postponing this until the.
I'll second that.
Full commission meeting, and should we need to add it, with, from the floor, we can do that.
I'll second that amendment.
All right, is there any questions?
Just so everyone's clear, we may be adding something to the agenda from the commission floor that has to deal with judicial magistrates.
Correct. So, all right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Carries will do that. Approved meeting dates for County Commission year 2023. Is there any questions? Basically, it moves January and February to the 4th Monday as well as June to the 4th Monday. I think that's the only changes that I saw on the agenda previously. Any questions?
I'll make a motion we approve the.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Teacher, second by Commissioner Klein. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Anti-discrimination policy, move for discussion.
Second. Yeah, I have one note on, one question on this. Where did this come from?
So we basically do this every year because I believe it's TDOT that you have to approve this for to get any grants through them.
Okay.
There might be a few others, but it's for the purpose of getting grants, you have to have an anti-discrimination policy approved every year.
Okay, so this is a requirement to get funding from TDOT.
I'm fairly certain it's TDOT, but it is for grants. I know that.
Okay. Thank you, that was my question.
Any other discussion? We have a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve it.
All right, Commissioner
I'll
Schofield
second it.
and Commissioner Klein on the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Law Director Selection Discussion. I'll move for discussion with a second. All right, so I'll get the cue since Commissioner Bergdorf and Commissioner Harrison and Craig Garten and I were on the ad hoc selected for this process, and it's been a 3-month process, and it was a very good and lengthy process. We had 9 total applicants, one of which was not qualified, so we were at 8. Before we started our interview process 2 weeks ago, we had 4 of them withdraw their applications and drop out. So we ended up interviewing 4 candidates, and we scheduled them 30 minutes apiece. And here, you can see the line if you want to. It was a good discussion. I know that myself, I spent probably about 2 hours on the phone with each candidate. Kind of emailed them just a list of questions to give them a week to think through. There was a lot of constitutional issues, COVID-related issues, Second Amendment issues, zoning and planning and impact fee and growth related issues. I just wanted to, I had a pretty wide range of what I wanted. I know Commissioner Bergdorf, she met with each of the candidates in her own capacity and personally. And so we both had different approaches, and I'm not sure if the other 2 members met or really spoke in depth with anybody else, but I know that we did extensively. She probably met each of them for about 2 hours apiece. And out of that discussion, we had kind of created a little bit of a scoring matrix to score from, and I kind of had my own individual one just for me personally for my questions I asked, and then a second set, and when we came together as an ad hoc to ask the same questions to each candidate. We didn't allow them to be in the room while others were being asked, so they didn't know what was being asked ahead of time. And for me, but it was a pretty clear-cut decision, and surprisingly, the final two candidates, I'll say, were Eric Sittler, an attorney from Hendersonville and also an alderman, and Russ Edwards, who's an attorney from Hendersonville and also an alderman. And it came down to what we agreed on was to be moved out of the committee sort of by default. You had to have 3 votes, and so nobody of the 4 candidates had 3 votes. It was one candidate had 4 no votes, the other 3 had 2 votes apiece. And out of that process of elimination, we eliminated one of those candidates. And we spent some lengthy time discussing both Mr. Sittler and Mr. Edwards at length, and we decided to kind of just compromise to bring both of those names forward to this committee. Since then, Alderman Edwards has withdrawn because he has put in his application for the judge open position in Hendersonville. So there's only one candidate that we're bringing forward, and that's Eric Sittler. He was, out of all fairness and objectivity, going through this process, so just answering my questions in an objective way, scored the highest based on constitutionality of issues. And so I never met Mr. Sittler before speaking to him on the phone. I met him for the first time, I guess, during the elections, for the alderman elections, and then here second time. So I didn't really have any background. I've known Russ my entire life, full disclosure, so grew up with him, and a great guy. And so two super fantastic individuals as far as people and attorneys. Mr. Sittler scored higher on my questions based on overall on the other ones. And I think for Commissioner Bergdorf, he was her top pick. And so all that to say, I'm very comfortable with Mr. Sittler, with his background. He's a 12-year Army vet. He was a biology major, worked with TDEC, dealing with a lot of water control issues. So his background, in my opinion, was very qualified for what issues we're dealing with as a county commission, with growth, water issues, flooding, looking at those types of things. I know there's some issues that we've been talking about landowners there, that there's some stuff that we're going to have to get fixed. It's flooding out neighboring properties, part of the school, and what's been done improperly. But his background is in real estate law as well, so dealing with a lot of contractual stuff. So he has 16 years experience as an attorney on top of his TDEC and the Army experience. So very professional. I just, I can't speak highly enough of feeling comfortable with Mr. Sittler. One thing that kind of was both from myself and Commissioner Bergdorf was important, that we were looking for somebody who was kind of really outside of our system, our political system, to be honest with you, that wasn't really affiliated. Somebody, even we were looking outside of Sumner County. We had several applicants, and one out of state. So that was, I liked that prospect personally of being not a part of our system. And so Mr. Sittler definitely, as far as he's not been definitely politically involved locally. So I see this is more of a political position. I mean, it's not, but it is. You know how that goes. But just somebody who, being objective and is not somebody that we all knew, because we don't. So it's a little bit more fresh eyes for everybody coming in as a position. So just wanted to give a little of that background, discuss some of these things at the ad hoc. I just wanted to bring that for you too. So he's our only candidate technically now. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve Mr. Sittler to push forward to the full commission for confirmation next Monday.
Second.
All right, second by Commissioner Teachner. Is there any discussion or questions? Commissioner Clark.
He is an alderman, and
He's an alderman. Great point. I've asked them, both, and I will add this to, I guess, amend my motion to step down from being an alderman and from closing his practice, and it's something that he would be able to do immediately. Typically, and Ben and I have spoken about this, but like when a judge gets elected, they have like 6 months to wind down their practice, and so Mr. Sittler would do the same thing, and we're prepared to do that should we elect him for this position. And as well as stepping down as an alderman in Hendersonville. I would like to amend my motion. We had put a salary range of 165 to 185, and so I want to amend that to include the 185 range based on his experience and so.
And I'm okay with my second.
You'll second that amendment? Okay.
So, 2 questions. One is, this process we put together because there was initial, I think, just if we're being open about it, there was some disagreement about the process itself for getting a new county attorney. And I do want to, I believe, Mr. Hyde, you were the individual who made this motion to put this, this subcommittee together and this, build this process. And I would just like to ask if Mr. Isbell has been happy and satisfied with the process, not the individual, you know, I don't want to make you put you on the spot there, but just in general.
I'll work with Mr. Sidley.
Yeah, is the process, you think this process has been good? I just, all right. The second thing is, are we going to make the offer at 185, or is there some negotiation that needs to be done to lock in salary?
Do you want to offer him what's been the practice? It's not been written anywhere, but for the past several years, the law director's salary has been that of a general sessions judge, and that way, whatever raise the judges get, law director gets, there's no negotiation later based off of, well, I've been here for 5 years, I want this much more.
I bring this up because it's a contract. This is a contracted position, correct?
That's correct.
So like, when you're doing a contract, it's typically like you know, there's some things we have to get in place between, ideally, we want this, because our current county, the acting county attorney is abandoning us, and so we need this individual in place. We need to be able to vote, and I think in order to vote, we probably want to have that contract in order so that we have it in the packet for next week. That's why I asked if we want to, how we're going to handle that.
Well, there's a contract as far as the private act, and it's a law director contract from a previous law director that was voted by resolution, but I mean, I don't have that, but I mean, it's.
I don't have it, and I assumed that there'd be a few changes that want to be made to that, but I don't think they would be large. It would be a good template to go from as far as getting something ready.
I would just suggest an amendment that, just to state that, I mean, it's very similar to what you just mentioned, have, amend this to accept Mr. Stidler to include having a fully baked contract ready for.
Do we have a second on his amendment, a final amendment for this motion?
I have a couple questions about that. So, who would prepare that final overseeing of the contract?
It would, I'd prepare it,
Then what-
county commission would have, and Mr. Sidler would have to agree to it.
And would it would be prepared before this coming commission meeting?
Yes.
I mean, he's the only one going forward with it. That
Right.
doesn't seem that crazy.
Right.
So, my suggestion would be that if you want to second this motion, or I'll second it, I'm going to go ahead and second your motion, so get that out there, is Ben can draw up that kind of standard contract that's been a part of this process from the private act. And then we obviously, it'll be in our packet, and we can ask questions from the floor, look at it, if we need to amend anything.
I just want to make sure we're not in a situation where we approve somebody and they're like, oh, we still have to negotiate. I just want it, when we step on the commission floor next week, we have something ready to go.
I have a question.
Hold on, not right now.
I do want to ask about something that I think might be an issue on the floor, so I want to bring it up here. As far as with that contract, I know with the previous law director leaving, there was not much in there about leaving midterm. I was thinking, and I know many people had issues with that, and I was thinking that you would probably want me to add something along the lines of, if they leave midterm, they forfeit any vacation days that they had built up that would be paid out for your average employees, something like, and says that they won't be paid out for the rest of their contract or whatever. Would you want me to include language like that?
I'd be fine with that, because I mean, I was opposed to that happening this time, so that's what happened. So.
When the previous contract was silent to it, so I knew there was issues with it, so I wanted to bring it up instead of having come up with the meeting, well, maybe we should add something, and then we're kind of scrambling at the middle of the commission meeting.
I'm agnostic, I guess, to the specific details of whatever contract this is going to be. I just want there to be some contract to review with all this lined out. I mean, this sounds like a great idea prior to the full commission.
Okay.
So that everybody can see this and we have it, and we walk away from it and it's done. That's all. So, but what I'm saying does not preclude you from doing that. It just doesn't require it.
So the reason I brought that up, because I don't want to just go too far off on my own and just be adding new terms, but that was something that I thought this commission may want, instead of just basically a new version of the old one with different dates in there.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. Yeah,
I'd rather have it just like if it's a regular county employee, when they leave, they can't take their vacation time.
We get paid out for our vacation time. This would make it,
So they can't.
this would be, if they left their term, it's kind of
Yeah, it's
a stick for,
It's a
don't leave
penalty.
midterm. It's a
Correct.
penalty of where, when I leave, and we'll have a new law director, so it'll be at my old salary. It's been a while since I got to take a vacation, about 5.5 weeks built up. So I will get paid out for that. You don't get paid out for sick days, that goes to TCRS.
Right.
So this is saying that if you hire a law director for a 4-year term and they leave 2 years into it, and they have 6 weeks of sick time built up, they don't get paid for 6 weeks for that sick time. Or not sick time, sorry, vacation time.
That's a great idea.
Any other questions?
Not here.
So we have one amendment for Commissioner Schoss for adding that contract language, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have another amendment that I added for the salary offer at that 185. Any questions on that?
I do have one question. What does our general sessions judge come in at?
It's like 184, 300, something like that. It's close.
Any objections? Commissioner Klein?
Then it mentioned tying it with the judges' salaries. Is that something you,
This is a contract. I mean, I think it's different.
are
I
the
feel like it's
judges'
different.
contracts?
You can put whatever salary arrangement you want in the contract. You can make it where 185 is where they're going to get every year of the 4 years, no increases. You can make it where get the same increases county employees do, or you can tie it to some other metric such as the judges. You're making the contract.
I mean, I wouldn't see why we wouldn't be able to, on a yearly basis, we want to reevaluate that salary. That's what I would want to do.
Okay. It was, that general sessions judge salary was probably about 8.5 years ago when it was matched up with the general sessions judge.
And my understanding, it was never a resolution. It was just basically a gentleman's agreement, so it was just a verbal thing. It was just kind of a stated, not written. So that's just where that came from. So, and I'm fine with just negotiating, where we can choose to raise that, not automatically default. Is that kind of the spirit of what you're saying, Commissioner Show?
I mean, to me, it's a 4-year contract. I mean, I'd lock it in where it is, but if we want to open it up where it's negotiable year over year, that's not crazy for a contract either, so I'm good with it either way.
Generally, with the county raises, it's done based off of everyone gets a 3% cost of living. The only exception being the last year when they did the pay study. And occasionally you have an employee who went and got a master's or something like
Well,
that.
I
But generally, it's
understand that. What I'm-
a small, it's the same percentage everyone else would get.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm getting at is that I would want to look at everything, and I intend to look at everything in my capacity as budget chair to include cost of living increases, all of that. Like, we're not just going to guarantee it, or lock things together where they don't need to be locked together. That's my opinion.
I agree. Well, we've already voted on that. But we haven't voted on mine for the salary.
Who's going to negotiate it?
I mean, we're doing it right now.
Okay. I mean, if he came back and said, I'd like a 10% increase every year.
The body has to have it.
So if what is approved when, assuming that this body votes for Mr. Sittler with this contract, if he agrees to it and he signs it, then he can just start, no one has to do anything else. If he comes back and says, no, subsection D3, that needs to change, well, then we'd have to either wait until the next month or do a special call meeting to either vote on amending that contract in some way, because it's no longer the one we had already approved. But that's only if he comes back with a change. If we agreed to the language of the contract that he hasn't agreed to yet, as long as if he comes in the next day and signs it, then he can just start and we're good to go.
You're gonna have that in the published agenda anyway, so you can read that ahead of time like the public can. Correct. Or you're gonna, this will be in our agenda for us to look at on Monday. Or will it, you think, or?
I hope to get in the agenda. At the minimum, I was going to send it to all the commissioners beforehand and
That's
also
fine.
to Mr. Sittler.
Yeah, that's fine. Just if it, hopefully before Monday. So even if it's Friday, the weekend or something, just so we can have,
Okay.
for the him to look at that, so.
I don't want to put in the position of getting a contract and told to accept it in the next 5 minutes. So,
Mr. Chairman, I would ask the chair if they would consider hearing the commissioner that made an inquiry to speak. I'd like
Oh,
to
yeah.
hear what he had to say.
Commissioner Wynn?
Great discussion. What's the term of the contract? I haven't heard.
It's 4 years, it's a private act.
4 year.
It's
Okay.
state law.
That, I know, is there any potential to finish out the existing and then offer the 4 year after the existing term's completed? And I say that just so that we're not running into election cycles. It doesn't turn this into a political position. So it's something for the committee just to think through and consider.
when the initial private act was passed, it was for, the initial term was 6 years, and the purpose was to get it off calendar, because the idea was give the commissioners 2 years to work with the attorney, and then they decided they want to keep them, not, they're here for a month and decide to fire the person or not fire the person. Now, I think that this commission could do something along those lines of appointing for the rest of this term, and then a 4 year term at the end of that, or they could just do a 4 year one. I think it'd go either
Well, I
way.
mean, I'm just about to say no to that. I'm not going to entertain a motion on that. Just it's a 4 year term based on the private act, strict reading of the law. We've kind of gone over this over and over again, so it's not an extension. You can't just kind of pick up the contract where somebody else leaves off stuff. That's not how the law is written. So I mean, right now the contract starts if we vote to approve in December and he comes on in December, January. That's when that's when his contract's over. That's when Mr. Dennon's contract is over in December, kind of thing, same thing. Mr. Mullings is a 4 year contract. I don't know where that falls in a cycle, but it just falls on whatever month of the year and whatever year it is. I mean, that's kind of how I guess start dating my company in October. So standard fare. Any questions on that? We still have one, so I still have my motion on the floor, my amendment for the salary to approve of 185. Is it been seconded? Is there any other discussion?
Last point, one last point of discussion. I'm good with all of that. There's nothing that precludes us from bringing this discussion back up, right?
Which part?
About, if we wanted to extend something later down the pipe.
See,
Private Act does.
Could do it. I genuinely don't.
So,
Private Act precludes it.
normally when we're appointing someone to a position that's vacant, it's till the end of the existing term. But this being such a unique thing, I wouldn't say it's definitive in any way. I don't think there's anything at all wrong with it.
Let's do the safe thing.
So,
We need
all
to
right.
approve this. So, all in favor,
No
say aye.
questions.
Aye. Any opposed?
All right.
Now we need to approve the main motion to approve Mr. Silver being passed on to the full commission.
So moved.
Say aye.
Second.
I've already got that motion.
Oh, did I?
Sorry, yeah. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move on. F, Commissioner Show, did you want to pull that one off?
Yes, I'm going to make just a brief comment on this. So this is a resolution, something that I've worked on in conjunction with some folks around the state. And I do want to move to old business, but I'll get briefly what the resolution is. It is a resolution that basically petitions the governor to take several actions relevant to the coronavirus vaccine mandate for the Tennessee National Guard. And generally speaking, it has that among other things have clearly shown a detrimental impact to recruiting and readiness. And I mean, the numbers don't lie. This last year has been the biggest gap in recruiting in the military, both active duty, reserves, and guard units across the country since I've been paying attention for 20 years. So, and there's a lot, I could go into a lot of details on this about why this was unnecessary, et cetera, about how it's very similar to the anthrax vaccine, some of the decisions that were made there, which turned out to be not good ones. But the point is, behind this, the reason I want to move to old business is that recently the Biden administration has gone ahead and wisely chosen to wisely recognize that everything I just said is negatively impacting our armed services, and so they have changed their stance on this and removed that mandate. So a lot of what is in this is not relevant anymore. I want to keep it. I want to keep this on old business because I think there's other things we should do, but it needs a lot of rework. So I don't want to vote on it now.
All right, we're going to move that to old business if there's no objection, so we don't need to take a vote on that. So I'm just going to record note that we're going to move that resolution to old business for next month. All right, next item up is G, resolution Prohibiting eminent domain from being used to acquire privately owned real property for parks, trails, paths, or greenways for walking, running, hiking, bicycling, or equestrian use, unless the privately owned real property is parallel to, runs directly along the length of, and extends in the same direction as a highway, road, or street. And you'll have this in your packet. This is a resolution that I brought forward 8 times and was denied even having on an agenda. The previous county commission, they were not willing to protect the homeowners from an egregious abuse of eminent domain for greenways. And this was born out of our 2019 sewer line fight, i.e. greenway fight, which was part of that. And what I did is there was a bill crafted in Idaho. I spoke with a state senator 2 years ago about this bill where they passed this. And so this is their language, roughly. And I worked with Terry Lynn Weaver in 2020 and on this, crafting this to change state law for this to protect homeowners from this egregious abuse of eminent domain. And COVID hit. We didn't get a chance to really run that bill. Worked with the legal department there at the state based on the resolution that I was trying to bring forward at the county commission that failed 8 times. And I say failed, just didn't even get on the agenda. So then last year, I brought this forward back with Terry Lynn Weaver. We did get it before a committee hearing. Not surprisingly, it was killed in committee by state representatives who are developers and real estate agents and who did not want to see the prohibition on this, so no big surprise there. So I did speak with our state representatives, Lamberth and Garrett, about bringing this forward as a private act, since it would be more local to Sumner County, which they seem to think would be a lot more palatable and not having a problem with the General Assembly. But this is a private act, so it needs a 2/3 vote of the commission, where it would then push forward to the General Assembly in the session, where it would then come back to us after a session around May, and then we'd have to vote on it again to accept it. So it's a more extensive process. And the reason, I did this, you can go back and watch. So, I'm just tired, and citizens are tired of being run over and curb stomped for private needs. And I sat in living rooms, the late Commissioner Mo Taylor, for months. We worked on this in hundreds of hours. And sitting in the living rooms of people along Upper Station Camp Creek Road people that had family land 200 years, and now they've since sold their land and gone and moved to like Greenbrier, and just because this has so destroyed them. And they brought in this sewer, it wasn't for the schools. 71% of the capacity, based on engineering I've talked to, was for new development all the way to Cottontown, to the Bridle House and beyond. So only 29% of that capacity flow was for, that gravity sewer was for the schools. So we were fighting to have the gravity sewer along the roadway. And at that time, they wanted to be a pressurized force main along the roadway. It would have been cheaper at the time, and it would have been an existing utility easement on the road. And should they wanted to put a greenway there, they could have, because it was an existing utility. It was a sidewalk, basically like in front of Ocana, down to Douglas Clark. And so it wasn't what the previous commission did. They put it in their backyards under sewer. We temporarily got them to remove any language of greenway, but to say that the greenway is dead is, as Mo Taylor said, it's partially accurate information presented in a grossly inaccurate manner, because that greenway is not dead. That greenway, if you look on the 2035 plan, the 2020 Parks plan, the Bridle House grant application that they received a couple years ago, as well as the 2 different grant applications the county put in through TDOT to try to put in greenways all the way to the Bridle House. So everything leads to the Bridle House along Upper Station Camp. But what's more egregious in what Idaho did was to stop an invasive use of somebody's private property. It's like Commissioner Hyde said almost 4 years ago, people's private property rights are sacred, and you don't invade those things. And so I don't care what anybody says as far as if you take something against somebody's wishes that is theirs in that instance, like their land, and you try to call it for public benefit or for equitable access for urbanites, and that's just, it's wrong. That is completely wrong. And so I don't, one thing I'll state, this Private Act does not do, and I'll state that the fact, and State Representative Terry Weaver did a really good job of explaining this in committee at the General Assembly, and does not in any way stop, restrict, curb, or slow down growth. This does not do that. It does not prohibit greenways on private property with consent, or parks or anything else. It doesn't do any of that. Or planned unit developments, or businesses, or schools, or anything from having, when that consent is given, it doesn't stop any of this voluntarily. And it doesn't prohibit the condemnation of any land for public utilities, such as sewers, water lines, electric, streets, roads, highways, et cetera, on private property. It doesn't stop. Doesn't do any of those things. The language of what I brought forth is very clear. It's very intentional. And, on the second page, it just tells you what it doesn't do. But the goal is to protect private property rights and citizens from an egregious abuse of eminent domain to profit private development. And that's exactly what this is for.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
So second, I got a motion to approve by myself and a second by Commissioner Hyde. I would hope that this would not be controversial and that I would have 24 votes on the commission, because I think that everybody in here wants to protect people's private property and land rights against greenways, regardless of anybody's opinion of things. I know that there's been a lot of discussion and agreement. I've not heard anybody disagree with that except for prior commissioners who voted to take this away from people. So, Commissioner Klein.
The greenway that was, the potential greenway that goes from
It's a plan, it's the current plan.
Long Hollow Pike up to Bridle House was done under the auspices of a sewer.
Correct.
Does this go far enough?
Well, we can't stop sewer. I mean, we can't stop that. But what this stops is basically it prohibits it where you can't go in anybody's backyard ever again. And in the extent of it, it does, unless, I mean, it doesn't stop you even from condemning for a greenway and these things unless it's running alongside a road parallel to, such as in the utility easement where a sidewalk is. So it doesn't prohibit that. Even for, if you wanted to condemn for it, you still could. It doesn't stop that in any way. The only thing it really stops, it's a really super narrow scope and focus in what we're doing. It's applicable to the entire state, in my opinion, and other people feel the same way. Like I said, Idaho's already done it as well, because they have a lot of farmland, in rural areas, and they're trying to bring that preservation there as they grow. So, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
All right. Any other discussion on that before the full commission? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Moving on. Next item, Comer Barn update. I just wanted, Ben, if you could give me an update on where we are on executing, if you giving that back to the Rogers Group.
So, just because of several things on my plate, I have some outside counsel getting a deed prepared for me, just because I knew that you guys wanted this done in a hurry, and I can do that with several other things that are going on at this moment. And that's in the process. I hope to have it by the end of this week and get that signed over to Rogers Group not long after. And the new law director, if he's selected on Monday, might be the one who finishes that process, but hopefully he just has to get a paper signed at that point.
Okay, all right, perfect. And I'll spare the budget question for.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Has the money already been sent back to the state, or where are we at with that?
We're in the process of sending it to the donors in the state. We're working on it right now.
All right, thank you. Item I, discussion actions taken on amending standing rules and procedures to include the prohibition of cell phone usage during meetings of the full commission. This was requested to be added to the agenda by a commissioner. I don't have any problems passing this on to the full commission, and I think we believe it'd be a 2/3 majority vote to adopt our rules at this point. So, is there any questions or discussion? Or
Second.
All right, second by Commissioner Schoaf.
Can I discuss? I don't have any problem with it either, but I think my one concern is sometimes I have information that I need, like from our emails, that I just don't print out, but I just have it right there for it, or I make notes on my phone. It's okay if I don't, but I just wanted to state that may be something that we may need to plan ahead on, but I still think it would be good to have the people's business at the forefront.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, but I'm.
So we have a motion to move it, and we have a second, and so we'll just move it to the floor of the commission for debate. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner recognition, item C, Commissioner Rogers has requested that go to January because the individual will not be there. So I move that, I don't know if we need, I'll make a motion.
I move that we move, group and approve, Mr. Chairman.
Well-
A, B, D.
So we have a motion to approve A, B, and D. All those second from Commissioner Show, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I make a motion for C to go to January. Second by Commissioner Rogers, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right, motion carries. Zoning, Thompson Lane, this is simply a docketing purposes, no discussion, will come before the legislature again next month. Moving to old business. Code resolution, Marshall Wright requested that we not take action right now. We still have a couple more months, so I'm going to keep this under old business without objection. We're going to move on to the final topic, discussion and actions taken for the preservation and protection of the Cottontown Community Center property, hazard mitigation grant properties, and Bridle House property. I so move for discussion. Well, first, I'm going to get a motion on the floor for discussion.
So moved.
Second by Commissioner Show. I have asked, I'll make a clarifying statement. One thing that happened after last month's legislative meeting was Commissioner Rogers made a motion to have an ad hoc to come back for individuals to come back and answer questions about the FEMA grants, and also to clarify what the ask was from the Cottontown Country Community nonprofit, was the purpose of the ad hoc, and that was the sole purpose of it. I appointed Commissioner Teacher because he's the commissioner for that area. I appointed Commissioner Klein because he asked at the meeting for that. And I appointed Commissioner Holmes because her property is one that's been stolen by eminent domain against her wishes. And again, that greenway is not going away. The commission put down what's called a geoblock, and you can see pictures on my commissioner page of that. It is the foundation for the greenway. Anybody who says otherwise, I mean, I got oceanfront property in Oklahoma itself too. But going along with that, the reason I chose the individual people on that is because of the spirit of what was asked of the ad hoc, was because we were asking them to do something to come back with us for information. So that is why I asked Erica Brister to be on it. There's nothing unethical about that. It's pretty simple. It was an ask that we had because they were doing the asking. We wanted them to clarify the ask with oversight from a small group of commissioners who could therefore kind of disseminate that information and work with them on what their ask was for the FEMA, what was tied up with it, and what the ask was on the property, and to be able to bring something back to us. Unfortunately, there was a false allegation made that the meeting was a violation of sunshine laws, which it was not a violation of sunshine laws, and therefore that was an egregious abuse of process there. And unfortunately, the commissioner did the right thing at that point, just to adjourn the meeting when somebody's casting negative aspersions and false accusations that aren't accurate and true and aren't even ethical to make. So that was a problem. So that meeting did not transpire. So now we're back here. And so because we're back here, I know today I had asked them what they didn't get a chance to do last week, but to email to us if they could, all they ask for the two deeds, the deed restrictions of what that might look like for us to look at, as well as what their incorporation papers look like as far as a nonprofit and their EIN number, as well as an agreement, a good faith estimate between the Bridle Houses. There's been a lot of misinformation spread and false information about the intent, saying we're closing people out and shutting it down, which is all false. So I've asked the president and vice president of the newly formed Cottontown Country Community Corporation to come and just present these documents to us. So, and that's going to be Mr. Clark Wright, and that's going to be Mrs. Tracy Finnegan, who are the president, vice president of this board, making this ask. And then I would request that you guys reserve any questions until after they've had a chance to present. Is that okay?
I was going to ask, would I be able to address a couple of things before they begin?
Sure, yeah,
Is
that's
this
fine.
okay?
Totally fine.
Can I turn around?
Yeah, whatever.
Folks, I want to talk to y'all a second. So I'm a transparent, open book. Anybody that met me on the campaign trail, learned that. Anybody that knew me before that, knew that. Anyone that met me after, I hope knows that. I got plenty of things I do wrong, plenty of sins that I bring before the Lord on a daily basis. That's a whole different thing. Where's Mr. Patches? But anyway, I like to address folks in front of me. So the reason why I was quick and zealous to raise my hand, even though the word is out of order, is because I don't like there to be any question. Because I believe that I'm held at a higher standard because I'm a Christian, but then also because I'm serving you. it's very important that you know who I am. So I thought about whether or not I should, vote or not vote. Went through that a lot because I take that seriously. And so very, very important to me. So I went back through it and I want to share with you a couple quick things if you don't mind. Sure.
We got
So
20
when I-
minutes to be sensitive.
Yeah, I'll be quick. When I was on the campaign trail, I came, there's several folks in this room, there's a handful who actually donated to my campaign. The Bristers are two of them. But there's a handful of folks that are here that donated to me. I mean, Mr. Pomeroy back there, and Jeremy donated. And so I'm just saying, yeah. And so I have a handful of folks that donated to me. I met with a few folks that I really enjoyed speaking with who didn't donate to me. And one of them, I'll just share with you a couple things. They told me, they said, I really like speaking with you, but they said, I believe that they said, I believe in high development. And they said, and not me, this person. And they said, Mr. Teacher, I also believe in that I don't think we have bad taxes. I think we could go up a little bit on taxes. So they said that they were for high taxes and they were for overdevelopment. And I said, I don't think I'm the candidate for you. So I think that's fair enough. But when I went and knocked on the Brewster's door, I said the same thing to them. I said, I'm not for higher taxes. I'm not for overdevelopment. And they said, I think you're the candidate for me. So I think that what is really a little bit egregious or wrong in the statement that was made is that how many of you, by a show of hands, support a candidate who believes differently than you believe? I don't. I've never supported a candidate I didn't agree with. And I've been really, really saddened whenever they show their true colors and they don't vote the way I want them to vote because it's right or wrong. Last thing I want to end with is, because I take it seriously, you can all come to me at any moment and talk to me. It's very important. I don't believe I'm supposed to actually not vote on this because I had too many people, including yesterday at church, that came up and asked me to vote on this. So I have to, because I don't just represent the Bristers. In fact, if I need to, I'll not vote for the Bristers, but I'll vote for the other Cotton Towners who I represent, and would be wrong to not vote and say what I believe. Because, I mean, this wonderful lady right here, she has been my beekeeping president. So I'd be wrong to not represent her. I'd be wrong to not represent, I'd be wrong to not represent the ones who disagree with me. But the thing is there's a line of people who disagree and people who agree. Doesn't mean that I respect you unless I care about each one of you. But if I'm voting for something that I believe in and it doesn't rub with the Constitution or the Bible, then it's not unethical. And the thing is, we would not be in this place at all had you, citizens of Sumner County, not had your property bulldozed over.
That's right.
And the thing is I believe that government is not the solution. Government's the problem. And unfortunately, we heard a few folks say tonight, Mr. Patchett said it too, we need to just go ahead and put it up on the auction block and sell it. I don't want to give anything to the Bristers. That would be ridiculous. And I don't want to give anything to you or to you. I want to give it to all of you, anything I do. So I just want that to be publicly said that I'm still looking at my votes, but whatever I do, I'm going to vote in good conscience because I care about each of you. Whether or not I vote the way you want me to, there's always another vote, and I care about each of you. I want you to know how much I do, and I want you to contact me constantly and not think it's a one-time out thing. Because I want to represent each of you, and I care about you, and I thank you each for being here. And that's why I shook every one of your hands before you came in. So thank you so much. I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you, Chairman, for that moment.
Thank you, Mr. Teacher. So again, why we are here is because it started with Cottontown Community Center being torn down, and there was actually an offer from the Bristers to pay for the property and for the community center not to be torn down. Unfortunately, that was not relayed to me in budget when I asked that in June. Didn't know anything about it. We didn't know, so it's one of those things you don't know what you don't know. So I received a good tongue lashing from that. But it's again, one thing we just don't know. So, that is what the impetus of starting this is. But I'll take it further. This to me is, I know we're running short on time, but I'm gonna have you guys present, but for me, this is really simple. All roads lead, if we're gonna talk about these properties, they all lead to the greenway and the future stealing of private property for these greenways, because that is the plan. I don't care what anybody says, that it's not existent, it's not there. I don't care what one commission does, unfortunately, doesn't bind another commission, that is true. And my opinion, based on, it's a tiered approach. One reason why I brought forward this no eminent domain resolution for Greenway, it's a layer, but like that with anything, with 16 votes, you can overturn a private act and different cycles. So it's not bulletproof. What we're doing tonight is not bulletproof to stop the county eventually, and ultimately, I don't think anything's bulletproof to keep the county from abusing private property rights. And so what this is to me, I'm going to disagree with anybody who says otherwise, and that's fine. I can express my opinion, and everybody else can express theirs, that the bridal house and these properties is part of the plan for the Greenway that extends extends through Cottontown up through Gallatin, and it comes through private property that nobody wants that to happen to. And my opinion, the only way to stop that as a second tier approach is to offload these properties out of the county's hands into private hands. With bumpers, and that's what we've asked them to bring us here tonight, bumpers with reverters and strict things. And so this isn't just something willy-nilly, but this is something that is, I see as imperative to stop this gross abuse of eminent domain for greenways with these plans that I've looked over thoroughly, and I've been a part of this process. This is my 5th year, and so, and I've fought and I've sat. I mean, this to me is an answered prayer. Talking about answered prayers. Sat in Commissioner Holmes, I don't know if she's here, we had probably about 75 people for a prayer vigil at her property, 34 acres. Me and Commissioner Mo Taylor, just praying for the right thing to be done. And to me, this is, and again, a lot of people folded the tent and left when they got their property taken against their wishes. But this is answered prayer to protect them in the future, because that geo block is in their backyard, and that is the foundation for a greenway. It's already there. And it's coming. If we don't cut the head off this little snake, it's going to turn into the monster it was bred to become. And so I want to cut the head off this snake. And that's my goal. And my goal is to defend private property rights. My goal is to defend the citizens. And in no way, and I will argue as much as I need to next week or tonight on these points. I don't mind going to 2 in the morning. I've done it plenty of other times, and I'll keep on going. I've got a stack of information. This is my stack of all the Greenway stuff that I've got and all my research. That I can pull just data and data and data out, that I'm ready to go to the mattresses anytime. But I just want to state that what this is to me, it's a 30,000-foot view, and it's a part of how do we truly protect our citizens from egregious abuse of eminent domain to private development against their wishes. And that's what we're trying to do, and that's what this is a part of. And that's just a simple fact. Other than that, nothing's changing, and the ask isn't other than changing property hands. So if you guys wouldn't mind come up and just kind of sharing what the ask is again, and going over with the committee and for the public to hear, and we'll have some questions and debate.
My name is Tracy Finnegan. I live at 737 Shun Pike, and I'm Vice President for the Cottontown Community Nonprofit.
And I am Clark Wright, the president of the Cottontown Country Community Nonprofit. I live at 205 County House Road in Cottontown. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, and committee members, tonight we're representing, all of those who came out in support of the community center in early October after it was torn down. We are also representing, the people of Cottontown and the Cottontown Country Community Nonprofit Board of Directors and Officers, and I'd like for them to raise their hands if they're here. We're asking that you grant the community center and bridal house properties to the Cottontown Country Community Nonprofit as provided under Tennessee Code 12-2-501, that is for the sale of historic or scenic property. Under this code, counties may sell real or personal property by private negotiation and sale if the property is significant for architectural archaeological, artistic, cultural, and historical purposes, or for its open, natural, and scenic condition. And 2, the property is sold to a nonprofit corporation or trust in the furtherance of its preservation or conservation purposes. And in this case, it applies.
Okay, so who is Cottontown Country Community and what are our goals? So we have 300 members who attended, over 300 members who attended the first meeting. There's 25 committee members that meet each week with 5 to 10 visitors that come to our meeting. Who's been to a meeting before? Okay, thank you. There's also 9 board members. The board members all reside, lay their head on a pillow in Cottontown. They are the Cottontown community that we're speaking for, so thank you for letting us speak for you. They're farmers, they're business owners, they're retired teachers, they're stay-at-home moms, they're machinists, they're retired men and women, they're marketing professionals, accountants, musicians, artists, graphic designers, contractors. They've lived in Cottontown 80 years plus, as little as 10 months. They've had land in their family multiple generations. They own 5 acres. I got in with 4.5, I think, to 1,200 acres. So this is who we are, the Cottontown Country Community. So our goals are, in that plan, I'm going to touch on most of what's in that plan, establishing that Cottontown is a community, and we want to plan our community, not have outsiders plan it for us. And so, like I said, our volunteer committee is 25 members. We meet weekly. We've held 9 weekly meetings. They're open to all. We've had a board of 9 members. We have 6 meetings. We've had 6 meetings so far. So some of our committees and the people that are volunteering are marketing committee. We've got a website, a logo, a marketing plan, a Facebook page, a cool video that was recently put out. We've sent also 2 community letters to everyone. We've had events and endeavors. A cookbook is on its way as a fundraiser. In December, who was there for pictures with Santa? That was awesome. There were over 100 people at the firehouse. They were gracious enough to let us use their space since we got rained out for our Plan A. We had over 100 people there. They loved it. We're going to have a potluck in January. We've got advisory committees. We've established our nonprofit. Some of the plans for the properties are to restore the landscaping and secure the buildings, to establish an inspection procedure and a schedule to inspect the buildings and the grounds, to establish maintenance grounds committee. We have an inside committee for cleaning and maintenance, and exterior grounds and maintenance. We've already done a little bit on the Draper House, just the initial clearing from what you've seen. We have a historic committee. You guys rock. They've done extensive research. They've gathered documents. They're being posted on social media and maintained in the archives. We've already had our first graveyard restoration, so thank you. And use plans for these buildings.
TCA 12-2-501.
So the Bridal House, a museum as it is now, and historical archives. And as a side note, the homeschool was an unfinished note. We were picturing homeschool demonstrations, quilting, etc. So just that unfinished note, apologize for that. And back to museum, historical archives, small scale community events. It's a very special house, and small scale events. Friends of the Bridal House, you are totally welcome. A pollinator garden. The community center land, rebuild the community center. Farmers market, musical event venue. We have a lot of artists and a lot of talent. Bluegrass music, can you hear it? I can hear it now. Country music, a community venue for weddings. Who wants to get married at the first person to get married at the Cottontown Country Community Center? Family reunions, potlucks. And then agricultural demonstrations to bring back full circle those agricultural demonstrations that were held years ago. For the post office, cultural arts center, for the Draper House, domestic cultural demonstrations, blacksmith demonstrations. So these are just some of the goals and the progress that all these wonderful people have made towards these goals.
And just quickly in your packets, you will find the following documents. You'll find the Cottonwood Country Community Charter nonprofit document. You will see the document that we have received from the IRS providing our employer identification number. The Community Center proposed deed and Bridal House proposed deed. There are reverters in these deeds that are more stringent than the current county deeds for those properties. Should the property fail to be used to serve the Cottontown community and the people of Sumner County, should it fall into disrepair for a period of 2 years, or in the event that the nonprofit ceases to exist as a nonprofit corporation in good standing with the state of Tennessee. So we have some very rigid reverters, but these deeds, particularly the Bridal House proposed deed, includes Mr. Ricky's wishes for public space, community gathering place, and historic preservation. The last document that you have is the Bridal House rental agreement and Bridal House meeting and events date request form. Our nonprofit desires for the Friends of the Bridal House to continue to use the Bridal House as they do now by establishing a formal usage agreement with them, with the Friends of the Bridal House, which they do not have currently with the county. But that is something that we have very much talked about and are very hopeful that they would desire to cooperate and work with us for the good of our community. And in closing, our nonprofit was established for the historical and cultural preservation of the Cottontown community for public good. It's our desire for local people, Cottontown people, to have local control of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We have some more
Mr.
questions.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to extend to 30 minutes to allow for this discussion.
Okay, and you got a motion to extend for 30 minutes. Got a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Klein. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. So real quick, one thing I just do want to share with you, Ben, I spoke with State Representative Johnny Garrett, who represents this area and who's mine. He kind of looked at what you were quoting under the Title V, and basically we looked at Title 12. And Representative Garrett gave me a history of Title V, which you were quoting, and he said basically this was done for one specific purpose. It was created for Ron Ramsey to donate county property, to name it the Ron Ramsey Building, for the specific purpose of what was in the bill, which was dealing with children and handicapped educational opportunities. A law did not exist at the time to give the building to the nonprofit for this specific narrow scope or purpose. He said Title V does not apply to Sumner County, what we're asking to do here. He was 100% confident we do not fall under that title. And what he said, we fall under Title 12, which basically is where counties may sell real or personal property by private negotiation to sell property significant for architectural, archaeological, artistic, cultural, or historic purposes for its open, natural, scenic condition, and it's sold up nonprofit trust in furtherance of preservation or conservation purposes. And a preservation or conservation agreement is placed in the deed, and nonprofit may only dispose of the property subject to covenants promoting preservation or conservation, or if applicable, securing the rights of public access. And so that's what we're going to be moving forward under this for discussion is that. So I have to.
I do just want to point out that this says negotiate and sell. The Title V, whether or not a state rep says it was made for one purpose, it is in the TCA section about counties. Talks about if you're donating the property. This statute only talks about if you're actually going to sell the property. That I don't think those have to be in.
Commissioner, I mean, I spoke with Mr. Garrett. I mean, he talked about for a nominal fee. I mean, these properties were donated to the county free of charge, and so I mean, there's no reason we can't donate them back with a nominal fee, which is usually $10 as far as a contract. So I guess, I mean, I'm just.
So is the concern here that this is that we cannot do this according to your interpretation, whereas your representative that you spoke with is a different interpretation? Is that what
I think if they wanted to limit it to one project, they should have made it some sort of private act or made it more specific. This talks about donating a property. This talks about selling the property to nonprofits. And I've said from the beginning we could sell it.
Let me make a proposal.
Majority, or with majority vote, we could sell it.
Let me make a proposal here. if I may. First off, I'm going to clarify a couple items because I think it's important. Is it all right if I
Yep,
get
go
a
ahead.
cue?
Do we even have a motion or a second?
I made a motion for
For
discussion. Yes.
Okay. I just
So,
wanna make sure it's all-
I want to clarify a couple things first, because you mentioned it earlier, and I've seen a lot of questions on it. I want to hear from you. Was the ad hoc committee meeting, or anything that the ad hoc committee did, unlawful?
No, you.
Good.
For purposes of notice, look at totality of the circumstances. It was an information-seeking ad hoc committee that reported to another committee that essentially reports to the full commission. You factor all that in, I do not believe that there is any issue with the notice, just because of how much this has been debated since and how much is going to be debated after this.
So second question that I think, we've heard a lot about giving the property to the Bristers. Are the Bristers on the board of the nonprofit currently? No. Okay. Third item, this is one I want to clarify. A document came forth from after a private citizen used open records request regarding expenditures on the Bridal House. And I read that document and asked several clarifying questions of you, David. And I want to be super clear here that I never stated that anything was fraudulent, only that there were funds being expended from a line item that was labeled jails and courthouses, which I do understand, I believe, has expanded considerably. And so I want to make that super clear. Item number 4. To anybody's knowledge here, was this property ever, upon acquisition, was there ever a vote taken to acquire the property? No. Any commissioners who've been in on the commission? Mr. Hyde, was that? So there was no vote taken. I do understand that according to Tennessee Code, we don't have to take a property, right? We don't have to have a vote. But that, I mean, feels like if we're going to encumber, and I know these are not huge numbers. There was a fair point made up here where there's not talking about huge numbers, but this feels like something that needs to be fixed going forward if we're going to take on property that will encumber the citizens with additional expenses, that ought to have a vote. That's probably a discussion for a different matter. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, I would like to make the following proposal. So a military commander I had once said, you want to do the right thing, but you want to do it the right way. And I cannot tell you the number of hours I've spent on the phone about this bridal house. Unbelievable. And here's my take on it. This is 100% about the Greenway. Everything else is superfluous. But one level deeper than that, what it really is about is trust. There are 850 some odd people in the Cottontown community Facebook group, and there are close, 380, I think, in a different group. And they don't trust each other, and they don't trust different people. So the Cottontown community, and this is what it's really about. So I'm just trying to level here. This is no longer like, I don't know how else to say this. This is about trust. And so one group does not trust the actions of the previous commission, and they have good reason not to for all of the reasons that Mr. Mansfield outlined before. Another group doesn't trust this commission. I get it. I don't ask. It is not contingent on any citizen to trust their government, and it's probably good that the citizens don't trust their government. So I would never ask any citizen to trust me. So, I feel like we're going to find ourselves in a quandary here that there's no way to go right. We vote to give this property, then, well, there's one other thing. There's a small group of ladies that I've met with the Friends of the Bridal House that I don't think had anything to do with any of the, I don't think they took anybody's property. I don't. So, and I feel like they're kind of caught in the middle of this. So, I feel like there's no way to do to do right if we go down this path, but I've really pondered this a lot with some help of some citizens who've reached out to me, and I want to come up with this proposal, just for consideration. I'm going to go ahead and read it, but the idea would be, ironically, since we don't have trust, we would move to put this property into a trust. So the proposal moves something like this. General, place the Cotton Down Bridal House, the property, and surrounding premises located at 2265 to 2251 Highway 25 into an irrevocable trust, the trust. The conditions required on the trust include, but are not limited to, all buildings currently standing on the premises shall be maintained in their current form. Let me go ahead and can you pass these around? And I've got more of them here for people to pick them up if they want. All buildings currently maintained on the premises shall be maintained in their current form in order to preserve the historical character of the property. I think everybody on all sides of this has stated that that's what they want. No portion of the property shall ever be developed in any way to include road frontage, sewage, residential, commercial, greenway, or other access of any sort. Per your comment, I also think nobody I've spoken to is for that, at least not openly. The property shall not be utilized by any profit-taking entity whatsoever. The property must be maintained lien-free, per a comment made by Mr. Pageant earlier, so we can take care of that. The property must be managed such that the public has reasonable and fair access to the premises. The property may not be transferred or sold in either part or a whole, nor shall it be partitioned for the purposes of such. So we can have more than that, but at a minimum, these items would go into the trust. Rules of construction. Sumner County Law Director, now that we have a new one, we hope, shall build, so we don't have to put this on you, Ben. You can move out of this one. Shall build the trust with the above conditions and any others which may be necessary to effect the broader goals of the trust, which strategically are to maintenance of the property in its current historical form, and prevention of the property from being used as part of a greater greenway system within Sumner County. The law director shall work with 2 individuals who we can appoint, who shall serve as advisors of the property, as advisor to this property. One selected by the Cottontown Country Community Incorporated, or a legal representative thereof, and another selected by the Friends of the Bridal House, or another legal representative thereof. The 2 individuals selected will to assist the director in the construction. The law director in the construction of the trust shall serve as the initial members of the Board of Trustees, or they may select someone to serve in that capacity upon execution of the trust. So the Board of Trustees, let's talk about that for a minute. The trust shall be managed by a Board of Trustees which consist of no fewer than 2, the 2 we mentioned, and no more than 7 trustees. The initial Board of Trustees shall be comprised of the 2 individuals who served as the advisors. I just kind of mentioned that. You can read it. The County Commission may, upon execution of the trust, appoint no more than 5 additional trustees. Importantly, once appointed, because I know there are a lot of questions about what can happen down the road. Once appointed, no trustee may be removed from the Board of Trustees unless he or she has been found guilty of a felony, or has been found to have utilized his or her position as trustee for fraudulent activity of any type, or has been declared mentally unfit by a court. Finally, rules of dissolution. The trust may not be dissolved unless otherwise required by federal or state law, and the trust may not be transferred except after a period of 2 years. We had a discussion of the 2 years earlier. Should the Board of Trustees fail to meet the requirements set forth by the maintenance of the property as adjudicated by a court, the county may vote to transfer the trust in its entirety to the Tennessee Historical Society. That is what I propose. I really just want people to stop yelling at each other and work together on something that we all claim to love. And I will shut up.
Are you making a motion?
I will make a motion to direct the new law director to take this, to appoint 2 individuals, or to work with the 2 organizations to appoint these 2 individuals, and set this in motion.
We have a second to discuss.
I'll make a second.
Second by Commissioner Klein. Open the floor for discussion. So the ask from the Cottontown Country Community Nonprofit Corporation is for the community center land that this trust does not entail. and for the bridal house, which is what this is about.
This is just the
Strictly
bridal house.
not
Just the
other.
bridal house.
So, we'll be dealing with two different things, should we want to, move this forward. As far as this, so I want to just back it up a little bit into some of the things about these deeds, with the goal being asking for these, if the commission approves these or votes to move these forward, to give these properties to the nonprofit, with the intent of I would want to, I guess, add language to the Cottontown Community Center. I don't see anything in here. I liked what you had here about not having any type of property shall never be developed in any way to include road frontage, sewage, residential, commercial, greenway, or other access of any sort. As far as I would want to add that to the reverter deed, I guess, to see that strengthened. And as far as you stated in here at another part about basically not using this as part of the master greenway plan, I would want to, if it's not in this deed, I don't think it's necessarily in that as far as the restrictions, but want to be in there. But these deeds basically talk about if they fail to do anything with the historical purposes of the properties or the intent of what the Tennessee Code or the intent of, like for example, the bridal house property, that it would get reverted back to the county. That's part of what's in these reverters, just as a bumper. And if what I see in here is basically what the county currently does not have with the bridal house, they do not have an agreement for them to be in there at all, which means they could be kicked out tomorrow. So what this is a good faith estimate of some kind of agreement to say we want to do better than what the county did, it's my understanding, to allow the bridal house to continue operating as is with all the varied sundries activities and furniture and fundraisers and the stuff that they do for the Friends of the Bridal House. My understanding, this is an agreement that just as submitted as a point of departure to solidify that and put at ease any of those types of things. So again, but this is under this quitclaim deed agreement. I don't know what would be necessary under this trust that you're adding as a motion.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the motion here is, I mean, I'd just like to consider, do we want to try to do this or not? And then if not, we can,
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So, on the law director shall work with two individuals. In that case, are they limited to that 37048 zip code, or are they countywide?
I mean, well, no. I mean, people would be able to pick for those two. Each of the two bodies, we have two bodies here who are arguing over this. I mean, we can make a motion to change that if we want to do that. I'd be happy to do that if we want, but as it stands, these two bodies are going to get to pick somebody to work with the new law director and stand up. And nothing's going to happen today under my proposal, right? Like, two people would get these two bodies would elevate two names, and then they would work with the law director, and then that they would come back with us, since we apparently can't have a meeting without getting disrupted with the county commissioners. These people wouldn't have any. There's no sunshine laws applying here. They can meet with the county attorney all day long. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I like what Matt has presented here, but I'm a little concerned that it might really cloud the waters. It might be used as an advisor to back check some things, but one of the things I have heard repeatedly in emails and phone calls regarding this is that you can't sell the property to a private entity. Well, let's talk about the old schoolhouse that was sold to a private entity. It was a 501 that Mr. Paget and his wife and another couple whose names I don't remember ended up selling back to the school district, and who then a week later either gave or sold it back to the county.
Technically, I don't think it was sold, but it was a nominal fee, so it's a $10 fee, so it was given, basically.
Is that given or sold?
No, that's what it's under there when we've said a couple of times, either donated or sold for a nominal fee. It's below market value. And Whereas it's not even arguable that it's close to market value. So like if you say $10 for a tract of land, it's.
Okay, well, my point is that it was in the hands of a 501c3 for some unknown period of time, and it wasn't until it was given or sold back to the county that it was demolished.
It was given 2 months before the sewer line greenway discussion of that was the intended plan. It is conspicuously 2 months before.
Okay, but my point is that the argument is, well, you cannot give or sell for a nominal fee or whatever to a private entity, but we had that happening for years with the school property. So the example is there.
That's different. That's the 501c3 selling it to the government entity. This is talking if the government entity can sell to a nonprofit.
But how did the Pagets and the other family, the organization, and I don't remember what it was called, how did they end up with the school in the first place?
I'm not sure on that.
I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know. But
It goes-
they controlled it.
But they
The
controlled
community controlled it as a nonprofit corporation, and they donated it to the county.
And so what I'm saying is the template is there for a nonprofit organization to own the property.
But what we're doing different is if contingency is if we donate it back to that newly formed Cottontown Country Community Inc., which is replacing the one that disbanded basically. The reverter, and the thing is they can't ever sell the land. They can't profit off the land. They can't do anything that's, if anything happens that is unsatisfactory, it just comes back to the county. It's not, they're making $1 million off this, and $500,000 off this.
Right.
The land, and these FEMA properties are worthless because they've been supposedly putting deemed worthless. So it's like, they're not worth $500,000.
Yeah, no,
That's just not true.
your point is established
So-
in that, and it's established
But we're
in
not,
that
I mean,
stuff.
again, this
This is
discussion
just
about
brought,
FEMA
just
property.
brought the bridle out.
Right.
This is-
It is, but I mean, it's, I understand where Commissioner Klein's coming from because the ask is for both properties. That's the ask as far as with these bumpers. And so I'm not quite sure I'm there yet on this. Which is taking the language from, I like some of the language in this that I don't see in this deed. The reverter clauses and the restrictions of adding it to them, I guess is where I'm kind of at right now, personally, but I guess as far as moving forward, I mean, not that could stop this from
Everybody,
being amended. I mean,
I know people say we vote as a block, but maybe we don't.
so, well, I definitely appreciate that you guys got elected by the citizens to support me, because me and Mo and Mr. Hyde fought, a couple of us for pretty much by ourselves for 4 years, so I'm very thankful for you guys being here, and that's what you got elected to do, is to help us, and so, and to help me, help the citizens, and so that's how I look at it.
You do have one question.
So,
I have a question regarding the discussion about the trust and the returning it to 501c. One of my big concerns is that the ownership of this area belongs to the people in Cottontown. They put their heart and souls into the land and they've done all the work. And I don't live in Cottontown, I love Cottontown. And I think that as we talk about this, we gotta stop thinking about our own selfish ideas about what we want. And when we talk about a trust, I've seen a trust broken, before. Like we can talk about Facebook, that man out there that deeded that land to the agriculture for the University of Tennessee. And the Gallatin took that land.
County Commission and Gallatin and the state.
They went to a judge and broke that reputable trust that he had, and now we have that big old data center.
Can I address that real quick?
Yes,
So-
just for the sake of, we don't have much time, Commissioner, so.
What I'm saying is, I heard we're gonna appoint a couple of people, and he brought up, is it that zip code? My concern is if you don't have people that are owners, are the soul and the blood of that area, making the decision for that area, then you may as well just give it to Gallatin and let them develop the whole damn thing. And I'm just telling you, I believe that, I listen to a lot of people, and I've listened to this story about the bridal house and all that. I'm not sure why there's all this discernment about a place that's on the historical registry. These people are trying to preserve and try to prevent all this development. I'm not a dummy. I've seen what's happened. But I'm saying that the blood, sweat and blood of this decision needs to come from Cotton County. Maybe you should have a vote of the whole community. Just put it up for vote.
Thank you. We don't have time for more comments.
Yeah, we'll get
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Say one quick thing about the zip code. Please bear in mind that there are at least 1,000 individuals that live right in Cottontown. I can walk to the bridal house and I have a Gallatin zip code. So keep that in mind too.
So, we're gonna bring this back.
Yeah.
Commissioner Schiff?
I just wanted to make one note about the irrevocable trust is a fair point, and there's no bulletproof thing here. I would note that the reason that the Gallatin land was able to break was because the board of trustees or the trustees on that trust wanted that to happen. I'm assuming we put the right people on this, they will never allow this trust to be broken. And so it's actually, I would argue that this is actually stronger than giving it directly to the nonprofit itself, because it ties everybody's hands. Now, can it be broken? Yes, but there's a lot more steps to be done here. That's I'll just let my argument stand as it is and let's take a vote or whatever, but that's my take in it.
So did you were concerned about people being on, as far as Commissioner Schoaf's amendment with this trust, people being in the Cottontown zip code, obviously, it's right across from the old post office. I mean, where the old post office is Gallatin, and then where the general store is Cottontown. So I mean, it's janky.
Well, I love what she said, because I live at Caps Gap, and I'm 37075. So I'm not.
You're not Hendersonville.
I'm
You're Hendersonville,
yeah, exactly. But my main concern is I've had so many people reach out to me. I've had about 4 or 5 that were not for this, but I've had, oh my goodness, so many conversations. It's completely consumed my time of just spending time talking about how important it was that the government doesn't have control of it. And that's the main concern of the citizens. So I see some points that you're making. I see some points that you're making. I mean, my only concern is maybe because I heard from citizens for so long, I would like to hear from citizens. Again, that's always my go-to. But I'm just saying but I think that we've heard from them on how they feel. So
I would entertain a motion and to say that it has to be within the Cottontown zip code or within a 5-mile radius.
I'm going to amend your motion.
Okay.
To declare they have to be a resident of Cottontown.
Okay.
Anybody on as far as, I guess that would be, rules of construction B is that the 2 individuals who serve as advisor, or A and B, that the condition is, they would, or I guess the board of trustees, where I'm going, maybe, where do you?
It's at the rules of construction,
Okay.
3A, or sorry, 3B.
3B, that's right. So I would want to amend this language to state that they have to be legal residents living in Cottontown.
can that be Gallatin?
I'm not going to restrict the zip code.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it could be Gallatin or obviously Cottontown, since it's split, because you've got Bug Hollow, I believe,
Yeah.
is Gallatin.
I
So, I
accept
mean,
that.
and that's like literally across the street. So, so,
I accept the amendment.
okay, so now a second?
Yeah.
Second by Commissioner Klein. All in favor of just accepting my amendment or discussion on that?
Yeah, can we have some discussion? The only thing I would, if you call it Cottontown, what's really Cottontown? If you say you're not gonna define it, I mean, I think that's this body's job, is to set forth legislation of which we're gonna consider Cottontown, what's considered Gallatin, what's considered Bethpage. If we're going as far to do this, I think it needs to be clean and not speculative, or whatever the word needs to be there, of saying who's in Cottontown, who's called Cottontown. I mean, that's obviously, Portland's the same way. You go right across the street and it's another unincorporated New Deal. Come onto the other side of the street and there's Portland, and then you go just a little further and there's Oak Grove, and then there's Westmore. That's what our county's made up of.
So can we, do it with a rate 5-mile radius? You good with that?
I just think it needs to be cleaner than.
I think that's better, just because how many times have you met someone who said, just forgive me, you say, oh, I'm from Nashville, because
Right.
people don't know where.
It's Goodlettsville.
Yeah, Goodlettsville is, or what, we're obviously not people here, but, you know, people kind of exaggerate to what's the closest thing that people would recognize. It gets a little conflated on who actually.
Without
lives.
objection, I'd like to amend my motion, my amendment to distinguish it as Cottontown residents. I say within a 5-mile radius of this, what I'm calling an epicenter of the Cottontown Community Center land and the Bridal House.
Fair.
Is that agreeable to you guys as a committee?
It's agreeable to me as the person who made the motion.
Okay, is that agreeable to you? All right,
Agreeable
so
to me. And
that's
it's agreeable to
that's
the
my
second.
amendment to your, that's my amendment to your motion. So,
I'm agreed and our senator's agreed.
That makes sense.
does that make more sense?
Yeah.
So, do I need to restate?
I think there should be just a little bit addition to that, or a 37048 address, or zip code. You understand what I mean? Because like, what if that's like different?
Okay.
You understand? I know that's kind of weird, but
Without
I don't want to
objection.
leave a cotton towner out.
Without objection, my amendment to your main motion is going to be Cottontown resident in the zip code
37048.
Or
within a 5-mile radius of the Bridal House and the Cottontown
Let's do
Community
that.
Center property.
Or within.
Yeah.
Is there
Not
any
and.
other discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition to that amendment? And now we're back onto your main motion of the Bridal House itself specifically being in a trust. Knowing that, I understand, you know, and I've made the point, anything can be broken. So what we're trying to do is put the most strict bumpers on, and that's why this is a layered approach with my eminent domain private act as well as this, and hopefully we can do some other things with working with the state representatives to really protect Sumner County. But so you got a motion, we got a second to this.
I'll second it. Has it been seconded? I'm sorry.
Commissioner Klein
I
seconded
think
it.
that's good.
Any further discussion on this question?
Can I ask Ben something? His proposal of this trust, does it strengthen or weaken?
It depends on what your view of that is. Would it weaken the nonprofits holdover because before they would have, under the first proposal, they're 100% owners? Yes. Would it strengthen the Friends of the Bridal House having more say in this because they're part of the table? Yes. So it's really less of strengthening and weakening, you know, which one's stronger, which one's weaker, and more of where is the power allocated. It's
Okay, so what we're trying to do is never have the property go private. Is the trust a stronger instrument than, and you probably haven't had time to digest the documentation.
there wouldn't be much difference as far as, you know, the example with Facebook. That was an extremely restrictive trust, and all of the heirs wanted out because they wanted all that Facebook money. So they were fighting to get out of it.
Right, correct.
Where here, I'm assuming
Fighting
that
to be in it.
they would be fighting to be in it. So we wouldn't be running that. It wouldn't accidentally be broken. People would be fighting tooth and nail to do it if they got done.
Does this trust satisfy any questions of TCA 12-2-501 under Title 12? Since we're not technically, I guess we'd be transferring this property
Yeah,
to
the
a
trust would own the property. The trust
Correct, not the
becomes a
county.
legal entity, not the county.
Correct, yeah. We don't want the-
12-501 specifically says it can be transferred to a trust. I still have my reservations that I've addressed earlier on the being able to do it for a donation versus selling at market value. But if that is the applicable statute, it does say a trust is.
So that's, this is obviously the stronger path for this under Tennessee Code annotated. Any other question? I'm ready to vote.
It feels like it would also even strengthen the upholding of Mr. Bricky's original.
No, he left it to Sumner County.
I'm just saying it's the trust being, you know.
So
I like
I'm ready to
it.
vote. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? All right, so that motion passes to accept that as a proposal. And so this is one thing
It has
So
the
that,
update in there.
that is for the trust, for the Bridal House property as far as that agreement being worked on. So we'll move that to the full commission for voting and negotiation. But the second part is still the ask for the Cottontown Community Centered property, which is a part of this quitclaim deed reverter. I'm trying to figure out which one this is. So as far as this, I do want to, I guess, amend the quitclaim deed language for giving to the Cottontown Country Community, Inc. to basically include some of this language from the trust. One being, basically the same conditions required by the trust under 2. I would like to see that language strengthened or brought into this quitclaim deed a little more strongly. If you guys, does that make sense?
If you make that motion, I'll
I'm gonna make a motion to pull the conditions required by the trust, that language into the quitclaim deed language.
Which parts? 2, all of 2?
All of 2.
Okay.
In addition to what they provided, not just replacing, but and that's just right now. I want to add that to move that
I'll
forward.
second that.
So we have a motion to add that language from conditions required by the trust, A through F, to the quitclaim deed language that has been presented just as a template, because it's the county's job to put this forward. They just did it in good faith to kind of give us something to look at, to know what the ask was. So, got a motion, got a second. Is there any objection or discussion as far as adding that to strengthen it, as far as prohibition on sewers, greenways, et cetera, et cetera? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes for that. I don't think there's, well, so we have basically moving forward with a trust to the full commission to vote on offloading this property, protect it from the abuse of greenways, and for the trust, for the Bridal House, and then offloading the property to the
I think the trust will take time to, I don't know if
That's something that the next law director will have to get
It's gonna
set
take
up.
time.
It's
So-
similar to law, a nonprofit that you have to actually form it and register and all that. It's-
So, but do we need to move it to the full commission to move forward to approve that? Or
I don't
is that
think
just
so. I
something we
think
do
it
in legislative?
I think it would go, I think that it would stay here. The next step here is to receive 2 names and to put those folks with the new.
You would want to be able
Law
to name
director.
at least the initial trustees doing it.
Yeah.
And obviously, the new law director might want to work with you to go ahead and have certain things in there that I wouldn't know what they are off the top of my head right now. I think it might be wise to sit down with him and work that out before having it ready to go.
So, to clarify, we passed these here in this committee, so the trust, I guess we will keep here in committee.
Well, the trust is I guess the way to interpret this is the trust is a directive to the new law director to meet with 2 individuals who are yet to be determined and to draw up a trust with those parameters and any additional in order to make sure that we're compliant with Tennessee code. That's the directive. That's
Do
what.
we need a motion for that?
Just to be clear,
So I'm gonna make a motion that we accept those terms as a directive to the new law director.
And just to make it clear that,
Yeah.
because my understanding was the vote was to go in and send it on to the commission.
Yeah,
That was my
that's-
intent, so.
Yeah, so let's,
So would you like to?
I second that. I want to remove the previous.
Well, let's move to reconsider. So I'm gonna move to reconsider the previous motion of sending this to the commission with the trust.
Can we not just send it?
No, because it needs to be built
Cleaner.
properly.
Okay.
So, do I have a second on my reconsider?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So motion is back on the floor. I'm gonna let you make the motion.
The motion is to issue a directive to the new law director to meet with 2 individuals to be determined, one to be selected by the Friends of the Bridal House, another to be selected by the Cottontown Country Community, subject to the geographical requirements that we met restrictions earlier, and subject to the outline of the document we just read, to construct a trust and bring that back to this committee within 90 days.
I don't wanna say 90 days.
60
Say
days.
next month.
Yeah.
All right, 30.
January.
Okay.
Like you
My
just
motion.
changed that.
We'll go with January 30.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Any discussion?
I do have some questions.
All right.
So we're gonna ask a new law director to come on, get his feet wet in the ground, and have a trust built up to come back here ready to vote on in January.
And if we need to extend it, we can, but that would be my goal, yes.
That's right.
I'm good with that.
You got thrown to the fire?
Well, I mean, I don't mind being trial by fire, but I just don't, that just seems like we're,
Well, I'm just, if we're looking at.
We can always give it more time.
I'm just saying we can extend it. I'm okay with doing 30 days, but not 30 days, but just next month, coming back with when we do this process. So that is what I'm.
I'll take that.
Come back
I
next year.
will make that motion with the same motion I had, 30 days.
That's still the motion, so yeah, to come back in 30 days, I seconded that.
Okay?
Oh, not 30 days.
Or
Come back
to
next
the
month.
January
Let's not put days on
Come back
it.
next year.
Let's keep on task here, we're way over time.
All right.
So, all in favor say aye on that motion. Is there any,
Aye.
any opposed? Was there any question on what that motion was? All right, so we have these two things to the Cottontown Country Community property. We are moving forward to the full commission next week. The Bridal House property, we have the directive for the law director. Is there anything else that we see that we need to discuss on these two things or take action?
Yes.
Chairman, I have a question on the Cottontown Community Center group. Can we get information on the group? I've gone online, I can't find a.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna, this is all gonna be submitted as, in the packet. Everything that they handed out is gonna be in the packet, all of it.
Okay.
So you'll have that whenever the packet comes out this week. That's why I asked for this to be, so yes.
And can we go ahead and ask each of those two groups, Cottontown and Friends of Bridal House, to put their name forward by a certain time before that? Or does that need?
All this is coming back in January, so,
Yeah.
which means it has to happen. So I don't think there's any need, I mean, we are, it's
Trial
started, yeah, so. So, that's the directive, is to work on that action. So, any other questions about this? I think we include two different paths here. So, I think we have one more motion to adjourn. Zoning.
we move.
Do we not do vote on that yet?
We
Okay.
have to.
Well, it's a document, so we don't have to take action on that. No, because it's next meeting.
Then you vote on it twice. You vote on
Okay,
this
well,
one.
I move to, I guess, approve this for tonight for the rezoning, for docketing purposes, so that it can move forward to January. Second. Second by Commissioner Schoaf, or, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Motion adjourned.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. We now have another meeting starting right now. It's the budget.
We will begin at 7:45.
Hold on a second, I got it. Which one is this?